Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever it is you're tuning in from. It is Thursday, July 11th, 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern. Thanks for tuning in again to What's Up Canada and beyond. Give us a shout out from wherever you guys are at. Do you guys have any idea what's going on in clown worlds today? I'm sure you guys are got some ideas, but it's really, really hard to keep up with the frenzy of the insanity. So, over the last couple of days, I've been really, really busy doing different shows, different places, different times, different people, all kinds of good stuff. We're going to dive into that. But tonight's show is going to be a little less doom and gloom and a little bit more of an in depth unpacking and connecting of the dots of all things Orwellian and dystopian that we can compare notes to. So this will be kind of a crash course for some on what George Orwell is all about, what I'm talking about, what people mean when they're talking about dystopian or Orwellian. So we're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. We've got quite a lot of video to go through here tonight, guys. But first things first, I'm going to try to start doing, as kind of a service to, if you will, a service to some. Where did it go? To some people that are out there doing the hard work, and occasionally I get some press releases, and I'm not sure why this one. Hang on here. We'll get it back here. Just there we go. I got a press release the other day, or today actually, and I think it bears reading to everybody because this is part and parcel of what's going on. So I'm a little discombobulated. Like I said, it's been a busy week, but this will all make sense real soon. So we're going to start with this news release from the Justice Center. And what I'm going to be doing here, guys, is as I get news releases, press releases from different organizations that are at the tip of the spear of the battle, it's very difficult to get past the guardians of the galaxy in the media spaces. So I'm going to try and really read these as I get them. This one is from the JCCF. And this one is important, I believe, because it's another morsel in the crime spree called the Liberal Government of Canada and the Arrive Can debacle, which is just going beyond the pale. And I'm glad people are not letting go of this. So this press release, I'll read it for you here, just so that it's kind of on the record. In Mississauga, the JCCF announces that the City of Mississauga prosecutors have withdrawn 5 charges against 4 Canadians who refused to comply with Arrive Can requirements at the Toronto Pearson International Airport. The withdrawn charges include those against, I'm not going to go after the names, after arriving in Toronto from the Netherlands, that his personal medical information should remain private and chose not to disclose his status via Arrive Can. In response, Peel Regional Police and Public Health Agency of Canada personnel detained him under pressure and without counsel. Something very familiar happened to a lot of Canadians. Mr. Slyhooten broke down and revealed his status. He received a $5,000 ticket for violating the Quarantine Act and was required to quarantine in his home for 14 days. So at the end of the day here, these charges have been dropped. But this is the point of it. Lawyer Chris Fleury stated, this outcome is bittersweet for each of our clients. It's positive for them personally. On the other hand, they were deeply interested in seeking a determination of the constitutionality of the irrational and unscientific decision forcing Canadians, I don't even like saying those words anymore. I'm already censored and smashed hard enough. To quarantine. The federal government has again escaped accountability for their coronavirus policy decisions that breached Canadians' charter rights. So this is part and parcel um, of the cover up. They continue to evade the ability to establish the precedents that they were culpable, that anybody is culpable, and so they continue to evade justice. So, although these five individuals, again, good for them, congratulations for them. Sad for the rest of us because they tried really, really hard to make to get this precedence set, which would have been critical to making sure that it does not happen again, right? So, kind of important to note that these charges are going to be dropped as expected, but again, kind of thwarted that we cannot pursue accountability on those crimes against Canadians. All right, so I'm going to give you guys, before we get into the meat and potatoes of things, I want to do a quick shout out and let you guys all know. No worries here. A couple of the programs that I did over this past few days. A new podcaster, RB Ham, out of Saskatoon, a very knowledgeable, intelligent guy, got another victim crushed by these irresponsible and heinous acts of our government. Has just launched a podcast. He was gracious enough to invite me on a couple of days ago, and it was really good. In this one, it was, as much as it was a drink from the fire hose, RB is from early on in all of this, so it's really good sometimes, not so much to be nostalgic about the last several years, but to not forget. So really good interview. Thank you, RB, for that. I hope others go out there. He is as dogged on the truth as I am, and just starting to get his feet wet in the podcasting and truth speaking space, which is an act of courage all unto itself. And then last night, kind of came about pretty quickly. A lot of people know that I follow Shadow's show each evening. He runs a 5 day a week, I think it is, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. Central, so 9 Eastern. And obviously, this show runs a little earlier, so have the ability to be in his chat group and talk with the community there and kind of gauge myself as to what he's covering. And so last night he had me on, and it was absolutely a very compacted, very dense discussion about all kinds of things. And it's always good when you get to talk to people that are contemporaries in your field, and when you don't talk to them for a little while, you get to see progress. And I think Shadow was pretty rocked at the evolution of this community, this platform, and what we are now doing. Not just in me being up here telling you guys what we're coming across, but making it make sense and giving people direction, stuff like that. This platform and this community, because it's a community endeavor, has really grown in its capabilities and abilities over the last number of years, and particularly since we relaunched with a fresh new program on I guess it was June 1st, and things have been really going the right direction. People are I see a comment here. I must have warned Shadow out as he took the night off. It was an awful lot. We covered so much ground in last night's show. So I hope people go and check it out. And if you like what Shadow is doing, get plugged in over there as well. So we're going to get back here now to what Orwellian is. Getting a notification. I hope my videos don't mess up. Yeah, Shadow and I could easily do a 2-hour show. Here's the thing about when we're doing this stuff, guys. I could do an 8-hour show every single day, just ciphering through the noise and garbage and nonsense of the swamp. Um, and the more we do, the more we want to do, the more we want to do, the more we try and do, and ultimately it starts to go sideways, and get burnout. These are real things. There's a massive amount of work that goes into what we're doing just to deliver a high level or a high quality level, for an hour or two. With this new structure, my days don't typically end till about 1:30 in the morning, when the Substack with all the documents, the shows, the receipts, all of the notes comes out, or gets published. So there's a lot of work to it. Shadow and I could do that every single day, but I think it's also awesome for people to get out of, you know set patterns too much. People, we're finding that it's people are slowly starting to find out that Facebook has ended me. They won't let me stream to the What's Up Canada page anymore unless I bend to agree to Trudeau's rules. I won't do it. So here we are rebuilding yet again on another platform, and we're this time though we're doing it in multiple directions between Substack and Rumble. So awesome stuff, guys. Um, yeah, exactly. Carly Simon, great comment. The courts have to continue their gatekeeping for the next scamdemic. Exactly. We hit a bunch of that last night with Shadow. Before he got me on last night, he went and watched the latest show that I did on the current psyops underway in Canada right now, and I think he was rather startled. When we don't necessarily always get the context or get the opportunity or time to peel back the layers of the onion in all of the bombardment of the nonsense and gobbledygook that they're hitting us with all the time. So that's what I'm trying to do. And Shadow really, it must be working, because Shadow absolutely noticed it, that I'm covering less stories but digging deeper into them to give people more to chew on. And ultimately that kind of is part of consciously doing this, so that I can provide you guys with all of the links, all of the receipts, all the material, all the documents. If you see it on this show, you guys will be able to get it in the Substack instead of trying to remember, geez, I saw this on his show. Where was it? You got to watch the whole hour to figure it out. Now, you guys don't need to do that anymore. Just go to my Substack and you will get everything that we talk about right there. So, into the meat and potatoes of thing, dystopia. Well, you guys will hear this word. A lot of people are familiar, some might not be. We're going to cover exactly this. A dystopia is also called a cacotopia or anti-utopia, which is, utopia is like heaven or paradise, right? This is the opposite. It's a community or society that is extremely bad or frightening. And it wasn't this page, it was the other one here that I pulled up. Another simpler way to remember it: an imagined world or society in which people lead wretched, dehumanized, fearful lives. That is a term that, as you can see here by this graph, kind of started coming into use in the early 1950s and has now evolved to encompass things as we digest them in the modern age as Orwellian. So this is a new word that has kind of made its way into our language and vernacular. And it's an adjective describing a situation, idea, or societal condition that George Orwell identified as being destructive to the welfare of a free and open society. Now, this is kind of interesting, where George Orwell is the name that he was recognized and became famous by, with, But it wasn't his real name. His real name was, I believe, Ian Baird. But we're going to take a look at some of what, when people refer to these terms, we're going to listen to Orwell describing some of these terms, and then we're going to look at some modern day news. We're going to take a look at 3 years ago, what people had identified as incoming Orwellian truth, conspiracies theory come to reality. And then we're going to look at 10 more points that came out in some news yesterday from a very trusted figure. So I'm going to got this pulled up here. We're going to take a little quick look at the original 1984 trailer, and let me know if you guys can or cannot hear this. All right, guys, my dashboard is giving me a little bit of grief here, so let me know if this works or does not. I was afraid of that. Um, let's see if this works better. Sorry, guys. Let me know where there's a 30-second delay, so I won't know for 30 seconds, but let me know if it does or does not work. It might have to be something different.
If you want a vision of the future, Winston, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
A future where freedom becomes slavery, where privacy is forbidden, the past forgotten, and where living people simply vanish. Yet one man and one woman dare to love.
Can you get Sunday afternoon off?
Yes.
Take this.
Everyone knows. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world.
We can't get inside you. We can't get to your heart.
John Hurt, Susanna Hamilton, Cyril Cusack, and Richard Burton in the crowning role of his career.
What are your true feelings towards Big Brother? Hate. You must love him. It's not enough to obey him. You must love him.
The film of the book of the year. George Orwell's 1984.
So that movie came out in 1989 or something like that. It was, or might have been in 1984, but it was the visualization of the book written by George. It made him famous just before he died. There's another clip that I had pulled up here that kind of wanted to fill everybody out in on, because we had just looked at a bunch of this the other night. Here it is. Why? There we go. This one here, we were digging into some of the language that we're recognizing, the political language, the jargon. We took a bit of a deeper dive into this the other day. So it's interesting how these things tend to cycle through, and I kind of fish them out of the nonsense and the gobbledygook. That's I love it. I've been using this word for years, but you'll remember in that just that little trailer, that was where terms like Big Brother, those kinds of things came to light, right? So we're gonna that was kind of to set the tone of what we're going to explain and help everybody understand a little bit more, a little bit deeper. And we're gonna try this one here now. Which one is it? Come on. There we go. All right. Let me know if the volume does not work. So now this one here, in digging up some of the stuff to give you guys later on for this show, this one here I haven't seen yet, but this was one that I thought would be interesting, that I would be able to do a bit of a reaction with you guys. So I'm going to be watching this with you guys at the same time. But this was done 3 years ago. In exactly as I said, conspiracy theories coming true. So let's dig into this. I have no idea what to expect from this little clip, but it's had a couple of million views, so this ought to be interesting. Yep.
The Times says the project aims to reframe American history.
It is an examination of the United States' origin story, a corrective history. It is designed to kickstart conversations, thus that hashtag I just mentioned, 1619 Project Brunch.
Now to some major news out of the NFL. A source telling ESPN that Washington's NFL team retiring its controversial nickname.
The Aunt Jemima brand is getting erased. The name and logo are being dropped from all products, including the iconic pancake mix and maple syrup. Within hours of the Aunt Jemima announcement came word that Uncle Ben...
I had Aunt Jemima labeled bottles last weekend, so it's nice to see rebels out there that won't let Aunt Jemima or Uncle Ben's die.
Rice would get a new brand identity too.
New tonight, the Phoenix City Council voted to change the name of streets that they find offensive.
Barnes & Noble is facing backlash over its diverse editions of classic novels. Some to mention, like Peter Pan, The Secret Garden, are being displayed with new covers. The characters on the books are being reimagined as different ethnicities. This announcement
hasn't all of that exactly, everything is going down the memory hole, being rewritten, reworded, and sterilized to the the new ideology. It's a beautiful thing. The destruction
Twitter
of words.
dropping the programming terms master, slave, and blacklist from its code. Master and slave are going to become leader and follower, while blacklist will become deny list.
Watch this.
I have never discriminated on the basis of sexual preference.
Their sexual preference is an offensive and outdated term.
So Merriam-Webster, the dictionary, here's the old definition versus the new definition of sexual preference. Before it said orientation, sense, sexual preference. And now after that exchange between the two of them on Tuesday, now it says offensive, sense, sexual preference. What's your response?
The children were systematically turned against their parents and taught to spy on them. It was almost normal for people over 30 to be frightened of their own children. Now, these are quotes from Orwell's book. I like the way that this is done, where they've pulled up real world examples. I mean, keeping in mind, this was 3 years ago. Wait till we get to 2024. It's good to hear. It's ought to be disturbing, I'm sure.
You stupid dinosaur! Get the out of here!
I'm sorry, you guys.
That is a child attacking her mother and father for the crime of insufficient loyalty to Black Lives Matter. Here's a 15-year-old from Louisiana called Isabella. There are many like her in America right now.
I literally hate my family so much. It's just, they just try to argue with me that George Floyd they're just trying to tell me that he deserved that because he did something wrong and that it was okay. That is not okay. And it's just making me so upset. I don't know why. I do not want to live here. I hate living in Louisiana. I hate living around these racist. I just want to leave.
Interesting. I don't think that I think it's probably kind of the other way around on this one, Billy. Keeping in mind when Orwell lived. We'll touch on that a little bit as to how he came about understanding some of these things that he ultimately intended to be written as fiction and spent the last couple of years of his life defending because people were implying it in a far more literal, different sense than what he had originally intended. But at the end of the day, the man himself considered himself at the time what we would call progressive. At that day, in those days, it was called socialist. What can you do against a lunatic who is more intelligent than yourself, who gives your arguments a fair hearing and simply persists in his lunacy? Does that not sound like every single climate expert and pseudo-psycho white coat pharma accomplice out there? Pretty much does to me.
Accomplishment.
Think Trump is worse than Hitler?
Yes.
Yeah,
Could be.
definitely. Yeah. Why do you say that?
He's childish.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
He's trying to stop, like food stamps. People need those.
Do you think that ending food stamps is as bad as killing like 6 million Jews?
He did that?
Yeah. He killed
That's why he's
Jews.
number
He's
two.
trying to just destroy the planet.
And build that wall, yeah.
They did a Harvard study and actually a judicial system study as well, and they found that there was no racial bias when it came to police shootings last year. When you guys hear that, what does that make you think?
Cap.
That's it. Cap. They did a study that showed that cops are actually 18 times more likely to be killed than an unarmed black man is to be killed by the police.
I doubt it.
Cap.
Yeah, that is cap.
Let's do it. Do you think the gender wage gap is real?
I do.
How do you stop the gender wage gap?
That's a great question. I think we have to take a look at our government and our understanding of capitalism and consumerism and kind of start working there and work backwards.
If you had like a business, you know what I mean, and they could pay women 77 cents for every dollar that a man would make, that would be like capitalism. So they would hire all women.
I suppose in a sense I'm following what you're saying, but
So, good comments here, Billy. So he knew what he was doing. He, like every other socialist, has always felt that every government has done it wrong. And he was, I think, like a chess player sees the board, a long ways down the game. I think that's kind of what Orwell's intuition was telling him, that you guys are doing it wrong, and these books will tell you, will show you what's going to happen if you continue to do it wrong. So interesting that, but absolutely palm to the forehead. I'm sorry I cannot answer what CAP is, good or bad, but I'm thinking that maybe by the body language, I would think that the young fellow was probably adding a silent R in there in his response. So, yeah, interesting stuff. So, and this is Orwell was writing a manual, not fiction. he didn't see it as a manual, and this is one of the overarching points that I want people to understand, because although he couldn't have known what the outcome would be, and if you look at the image on the that I used for the screen grab today, if he was actually reading the news in 2024, I'm pretty sure he'd be rolling over in the grave as well, right? So war hysteria increases in intensity as one rises in the social scale. Those whose attitude towards the war is most nearly rational are the subject peoples of the disputed territories. Yeah, makes sense. The people that needs to make sense the most are usually the victims in between disputed territories of rich, insane men, right? Kind of, I don't know. Here, what these guys call out as such.
You can protest all you want, but the I just saw take place. I know there are people out here, homeless people, who rely on those banks to charge their phone. And you think it's okay to take down a neighborhood? You don't see corporations here. There are human beings that live in this neighborhood. You do this in Harlem, you do this in Brooklyn, and I swear on everything. These people in this neighborhood deserve better. And I'm not talking about the gentrification. I'm not talking about students who come here and pay cash to go to NYU. I am talking about the people who go to a methadone clinic down the street. And you think this is a protest?
I cannot argue with that lady's passion and vehemence. She's living in a war zone and the only one making sense between agitators that have absolutely no investment in what they're agitating about. So much empathy to that young lady. So this is 3 years ago that this was released. So interesting how many of these things are not just happening then, but repeating still, and we're going to get into a bunch more. So, and as far as for a couple of comments here, Old Sousey, did he dream it up and they just copied it, or did he know something? There's these, Billy, I think he knew. People have innate senses, and Orwell was a war correspondent during the war, and that changes people. And they get such a different sense of wisdom about them and foresight that is hard to measure or find in other people. So it's interesting to see this progression, and we'll look into a little bit more behind the man after in a bit here, yeah, for sure. So whatever happened, you vanished, and neither you nor your actions were ever heard of again. This, somebody by thumbs up in the chats or the comments here. Anybody remember a guy named Stefan Molyneux? Anybody? I hope he has not been forgotten, because he warned us and warned us and warned us as a philosopher with more guts and cojones and spine than Jordan Peterson or any of these other wannabes out there, regardless of what you think of them. Stefan Molyneux was the first high-profile canceling to make sure that every trace of him is removed from the internet, kind of like Bill Cooper of old, right? But Stefan is still with us. This is just recently, very profound, and this is exactly what they're doing and what I see coming. When Stéphane Jabot was first announced as the Heritage and Culture Minister by Trudeau, I did a show called I See My Assassin Coming. And that's exactly what this was, what I was referring to at the time. So yeah.
You post. But in today's culture, just a simple social media post from years ago can prevent you from getting a job. Is that fair?
Tonight, Denver 7's Russell Haythorne goes 360 on the rise of what's being referred to as cancel culture.
You may have never heard the term cancel culture.
It's somewhat of a boycott of a person who has done something that other people find objectionable.
It can also be someone just like you and me.
Putting something out there that can probably offend somebody.
So I often caution people, especially young people, students, about what they place on social media because that is their professional image and picture forever.
Cancel culture is a form of boycott or public shaming of a person who has shared a questionable or unpopular opinion.
Well, that pretty much, I'd say, pretty much nailed the hit the nail head on with a sledgehammer 3 years ago. Pretty interesting to see. You know, some of us weren't the only ones, right? To see this stuff coming. I got another one here, and it's kind of a little bit out of order, guys, but I'm gonna run this one anyways and kind of do a bit of a same thing reaction video. I kind of give it a once over to this earlier, but I think that this adds more spice, I guess, to the context. So we'll pull this one up. And there we go. Okay. Having to do everything twice here with my dashboard. Everything's kind of wonky, but we'll get through it. All right. This one here, what Orwellian really means. And this is a TED education thing done 8 years ago. So we're going to get kind of a little bit of a time travel through the butterfly effect of all of this. And yeah, so we'll hear what they have to say.
If you've watched the news or followed politics, chances are you've heard the term Orwellian thrown around in one context or another. But have you ever stopped to think about what it really means or why it's used so often? The term was named after British author Eric Blair, known by his pen name George Orwell. Because his most famous work, the novel 1984, depicts an oppressive society under a totalitarian government, Orwellian is often used simply to mean authoritarian. But using the term in this way not only fails to fully convey Orwell's message, it actually risks doing precisely what he tried to warn against.
Interesting.
Orwell was indeed opposed to all forms of tyranny, spending much of his life fighting against anti-democratic forces of both the left wing and the right. But he was also deeply concerned with how such ideologies proliferate. And one of his most profound insights was the importance that language plays in shaping our thoughts and opinions. The government of 1984's Oceania controls its people's actions and speech in some ways that are obvious. Their every move and word is watched and heard. And the threat of what happens to those who step out of line is always looming overhead. Other forms of control are not so obvious. The population is inundated with a constant barrage of propaganda, made up of historical facts and statistics manufactured in the Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Peace is the military. Labor camps are called joy camps. Political prisoners are detained and tortured in the Ministry of Love. This deliberate irony is an example of doublespeak, when words are used not to convey meaning.
Any of that going on these days, folks? Given all of the beer bug and now buzzard bug that they got coming at us, I think that's pretty explanatory.
But to undermine it, corrupting the very ideas they refer to.
Democracy, yeah, what they call democracy. What is that anymore? Preserving democracy, diversity, another one, equity. In environmental. Every word they use is a doublespeak.
The regime's control of language goes even further, eliminating words from the English language to create the official dialect of Newspeak, a crudely limited collection of acronyms and simple concrete nouns, lacking any words complex enough to encourage nuanced or critical thought. This has an effect on the psyche Orwell calls doublethink, a hypnotic state of cognitive dissonance in which one is.
Does this not perfectly describe where we are right now, where people are so disconnected? Because if you use a word that means something a little bit deeper than what they're programmed with, they just start to glitch out. So that's why I think it's so important for me to do these deeper exposés on some of this stuff, so people can recognize these things and understand and maybe
compelled to
deal.
disregard their own perception in place of the officially dictated version of events, leaving the individual completely dependent on the state's definition of reality itself.
We're
The
there.
result is a world in which even the privacy of one's own thought process is violated, where one may be found guilty of thought crime by talking.
Well, this is the point of the gaslighting and the astroturfing is don't believe your lying eyes, right? You're imagining you're the crazy one if you're not seeing 2 + 2 = 5. What's the matter with you? You must be broken, right? And when people do that to me, and it's like, this is what they're searching for, is that glitch.
Talking in their sleep.
That's exactly what they're talking about.
And keeping a diary or having a love affair equals a subversive act of rebellion. This might sound like something that can only happen in totalitarian regimes. But Orwell was warning us about the potential for this occurring even in democratic societies. And this is why authoritarian alone does not Orwellian make. In his
I think that's a good point. Authoritarian isn't just Orwellian, and we can't escape the meaning behind those words and what they imply in the discussion. If we misconstrue how we're discussing things, then we're already becoming a part of the problem, right? See a comment here. It was an optional book when I was in school, going back several decades. But I don't think they want people thinking this deeply. Our programming and our education and training system is primarily about multiplicity of genders and equality.
his essay, Politics and the English Language, he described techniques like using pretentious words to.
Ooh, we've talked about this: neurolinguistics programming, political influencers, campaign language, not to mention all of those, the gobbledygook terms, the ones that I euphemisms, all of these ones, they're, all of this is a completely new language that basically was described and articulated, and maybe he wrote the playbook for him. This is one of those time travel questions that still creates debates today. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. Wow, if that doesn't describe Lord Farquaad, Fancy Socks, Meat Muppet, Justin Trudeau, I don't know what does, with the virtue signaling and the pandering and the purity and nobility that he tries to project, all the while being one of the worst swamp creatures this country's ever produced. He brings credibility to a nation obsessed or a political system obsessed with mass murder.
To project authority, or making atrocities sound acceptable by burying them in euphemisms and convoluted sentence structures. But even more mundane abuses of language can affect the way we think about things. The words you see and hear in everyday advertising have been crafted to appeal to you and affect your behavior, as have the sound bites and talking points of political campaigns, which rarely present the most nuanced perspective on the issues.
It's about eliciting emotional reaction, triggering you. Some chemicals that our brains release are highly addictive. And this is a part of the process. This is that neurolinguistics programming that has been weaponized. Some people use the term MK Ultra, some people mass formation psychosis. It's all part and parcel of the same thing, of the reprogramming and the short circuiting of the thinking process.
And the way that we use ready-made phrases and responses, gleaned from media reports or copied from the internet, makes it easy to get away with not thinking too deeply or questioning your assumptions. So the next...
Last night's show with Shadow was a really interesting real-time this week, case study of that, where, as much as Shadow is informed and covers the headlines in the news, what we do here is a little bit different. We get a little bit deeper, and that can even shock somebody that thought they knew about different things, and when they learn a little bit more. And the first step to that is being open to the idea that we don't know what we don't know, and being open to alternative discussion and thinking. And the more you do that, the faster you sort through the bullpucky.
Time you hear someone use the word Orwellian, pay close attention. If they're talking about the deceptive and manipulative use of language, they're on the right track. If they're talking about mass surveillance and intrusive government, they're describing something authoritarian, but not necessarily Orwellian. And if they use it as an all-purpose word for any ideas they dislike, it's possible their statements are more Orwellian than whatever it is they're criticizing. Words have the power to shape thought.
This is why authoritarian is one thing, but Orwellian is, when people describe Canada as becoming this Orwellian dystopia, when it's the pundits that understand this, it means so much more, because it's not just about the rules, the authority. It's also about the programming and the gaslighting and the astroturfing, keeping in mind that what makes it Orwellian is that symbiosis of everything. It's not just authoritarian. It's the mass of it all makes authoritarian Orwellian, and that's kind of the cancer Canada's got.
Language is the currency of politics, forming the basis of society from the most common everyday interactions to the highest ideals. Orwell urged us to protect our language because ultimately, our ability to think and communicate clearly is what stands between us and a world where war is peace and freedom is slavery.
Wow, that was actually pretty awesome, guys. I appreciated that analysis, and again, it helps us articulate and dig in deeper, and not to be so dismissed. Lockstep is another. The clone troopers, the hive, the collective, they all spew the same thing because their ability to digest or go through anything else has been absolutely shattered, right? So when they're talking about some of this stuff, I think it's important to, and I'm gonna have to bounce around a little bit. I thought I had this in order. It's not. That's all right. We'll get over it. It's Live, not Memorex. Lockstep is pretty tight. Is pretty right. Yeah, they are in lockstep as programmed robots do. It's kind of the normal thing. So this is a documentary that somebody did just specifically on Orwell and his life and the warning that he was, not calling it a warning. He still felt it was fiction, but it's become a warning now. So we're going to see a little bit of what makes the man.
1930s and 40s, Orwell had witnessed the totalitarian regimes of Hitler's Germany and Stalin's Soviet Union with alarm, and during the war he was uncomfortable with the methods used by the British government to control and censor information. He believed that the foundations of totalitarianism lay in the misuse of language to manipulate the truth, and was pessimistic about humanity's tendency to be subject to such manipulation. Orwell intended this novel as a warning to mankind and was desperate to make progress on it despite his failing health. By September, he had written around 50 pages when he returned to London to catch up with friends and make professional arrangements. Meanwhile, a BBC radio adaptation of Animal Farm went out on the airwaves in January 1947, and Orwell switched to Secker and Warburg as his main publisher, after persuading Victor Gollancz to release him from his contract. By April, Orwell was back at Barn Hill and keen to finish the novel by early 1948, but was prevented from doing so by continued ill health. After falling out with Orwell's sister Avril, Susan Watson had left Barn Hill for good the previous autumn, but Richard Rees took it upon himself to spend most of the year at Barn Hill looking after.
I didn't really want to go through all of this. There was some other parts that were important in this and into explaining all this, but that's okay. I'm going to end up being over a little bit of time on this as well. But in the Substack tomorrow, I want everybody to know that all of this is going to be there, including the full-length movie as done in 1956. Good suggestion, Michelle. I'll maybe we'll set that up, or we'll do a dinner and a movie night like we've done a few. Those people seem to like those an awful lot. So I think it would be, but I also think that there's another one that would be interesting as well in that context. But I want people to know that everything's going to be gathered in one place, and this was something that I did. I actually committed 11 hours, almost 12 hours, and listened to the audiobook version as it was narrated by Arthur Lane. And it's so much different than watching, the hour and a half movie or whatever the case might be. What is it? Hour and a half. Yeah. To listen to the book versus the movie. See, for me, I was kind of one of those odd ducks growing up. I never saw E.T. Because I read the book, and the movie would ruin the book for me. So for me, I actually listened to the audiobook long before I ever saw the movie. But I want to bring up this other one that you guys heard briefly mentioned there, called The Animal Farm. This was a 100-page novelette that surprisingly went incredibly viral in its time, I guess. But this is a trailer for it as it was.
Throughout history, animals have worked for man. I keep alive! And man has fed and cared for them.
What about the animals? Let them rot. Where's our food?
I'm so hungry. But now, in this valley, on this farm, in this barn,
Man is our enemy.
things are about to change.
Remove man, and we will become free and equal.
Free and equal. Based on one of the most important and controversial books of our time.
What's going on in there? Revolution! Seize the day! Let's get to the car! Glorious victory is ours! We must never come to resemble man in any way.
They started with a dream of prosperity.
Our farm is now truly Animal Farm.
Now they will have to face their greatest challenge, themselves.
From now on, a special committee of pigs will decide all aspects of the farm.
No! Lakeshore International is proud to present George Orwell's classic tale of greed.
Who has the milk and apples?
Us pigs have the milk and apples. Corruption.
Napoleon, I want to see my puppies.
You can't see your puppies. Got a bottle of whiskey for you.
They're behaving like men. Can't tell the difference between them.
And oppression.
Any animal seen giving food to a hen will be punished by death. All animals are now free.
Animal Farm.
What if the pigs are wrong?
Is that a little bit disturbing, guys? There's I'm going to be including in the Substack as well tomorrow a little bit more of a in-depth into the Animal Farm book. It's really cool here. Isn't it interesting, Michelle, that so many of these things have been wiped and put into the memory hole so that people wouldn't learn about them because, as much as they were, written in the 30s and 40s, they were so predictive of what we have or what we're dealing with today. And I got another little clip here that I'm going to pull up from one of everybody's favorites. And then a couple of little comparisons. Everybody knows this guy, right? All right. For Smoke Fatty to watch that one. Who would have ever imagined that we would eventually arrive at this point? That's exactly like the why in the show cover today. Orwell reading 1984, right? I don't think he would have even thought about it, but I want to play this little short bit from everybody's old friend George Carlin. The book would be easier on the eyes, yeah. If you get on the wrong buzzer, every stop is a wrong stop for you. Very so cool. Well, good one there, Automar. All right.
American English is packed with euphemism because Americans have trouble dealing with reality. And in order to shield themselves from it, they use soft language.
It's worse with every generation. For some reason, it just keeps getting worse. There's a condition in combat. Most people know about it. It's when a fighting person's nervous system has been stressed to its absolute peak and maximum, can't take any more input. The nervous system has either snapped or is about to snap. In the First World War, that condition was called shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language. 2 syllables, shell shock. Almost sounds like the guns themselves. Then a whole generation went by, and the Second World War came along, and the very same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now. Takes a little longer to say. Doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. Then we had the war in Korea, 1950, and the very same combat condition was called operational exhaustion. Hey, we're up to 8 syllables now. And the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It's totally sterile now. Operational exhaustion. Sounds like something that might happen to your car. Then, of course, came the war in Vietnam. And thanks to the lies and deceit surrounding that war, I guess it's no surprise that the very same condition was called post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right? Makes sense, guys? Exactly this progression of things. I had a couple of, before we get out of the, we've still got Orwell in 1984 directly on the brain here. I'm going to add this link into my Substack as well. I'm not going to play this at all, but I'm going to add this in here because this is a very interesting, because what this does is kind of a timing and an explanation of the progression of war as envisioned by Orwell in the book 1984, as it covers their lives and describes the war and the ending up of the continents, Europa, Eurasia, East Asia, Ingsoc. Everybody's familiar with all of those. But just a couple of nights ago, we covered a story about the Shanghai the Shanghai Cooperation Organization map of membership, which kind of give me a little bit of the ding, 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 heebie-jeebies when I put it next to the map we were just looking at here of what Orwell was envisioning as potentially happening in 1984 as in his book. So last clip I'm going to play here tonight, just a couple of minutes of a fella I'm sure a lot of you guys will recognize, Glenn Beck. I don't agree with everything Glenn Beck does, but I do respect his relentless pursuit for truth, and I do believe he is genuinely one of the good guys for the most part. But this is something that I came across that kind of led to this whole show tonight, and I think it's important. Now, we looked at 7 statements that Orwell predicted in his book as noticed in 3 years ago. We're gonna look at
should we know about the president's health? Of course we should, but we won't, because we are living in the days of 1984. Listen to these 15 things that Monroe Harless pointed out in the Federalist. 15 ways that 1984 is 2024. Quote from the book: "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." Have you seen this? Have you seen the party demanding you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears all the time?
How long will we tolerate those deplorables? If you don't vote liberal, it's cold and dark. The future? I think we got it here too, Glenn.
We're seeing it all the time. 2, endless wars. Quote: "They add nothing to the wealth of the world, since whatever they produce is used for purposes of war, and the object of waging a war is always to be in a better position in which to wage another war." End quote.
I think we're there.
Have you seen the video of Joe Biden talking about American weapons being used for direct strikes inside of Russia? And why do some people speculate that the real purpose of this is to get rid of all of our own old weapons so we can make new weapons which will be better in the next war?
So now we can have a deeper understanding of why they just the elections in France and the UK ultimately, magically and conveniently, just like Biden's election victory, are necessary in order to prepare for the next war, and even our pathetic C-grade meat muppets in Ottawa, as we looked at last night or the night before, literally thinking that they're going to sell us on opening up and the government spending a bunch of more money on new mining in Canada, and everybody can have jobs, and these mines will make artillery shells for the Ukraine to protect the democracy of a quote-unquote leader who has outlived his mandate, is no longer officially in recognized office, has made it illegal to have elections, and has jailed all of his opposition parties. And our government wants to build more mines to give him more shells, while they're giving another $500 million announced to him today. Yeah, Glenn, I think we got up here in Canada too, my friend.
Doesn't this sound like exactly 1984?
Yeah, it does.
Number 3, separating babies from mothers at birth. Quote from the book: already we're breaking down the habits of thought which have survived from before the revolution. Children will be taken from their mothers at birth, as one takes eggs from a hen. What exactly is the issue here? Well, the issue is the well-being of a child, a living, breathing human who is created for the sole purpose of being sold or ripped away from her mom. This is something that is happening through surrogacy. And honestly, later in life, it is happening because of political correctness. 4, hatred of purity and goodness. I hate purity. I hate goodness. I don't want virtue to exist anywhere. I want everyone to be corrupt to the bones, end quote. Well, did anybody see what happened to Butker for being a Christian? They tore him apart, condemned him. Ray Rice? Nothing compared. 5.
So he's talking about the separation of children from their parents and the war on Christianity. And we've got this here in Canada too, with the don't tell your parents by the teachers programs, the alphabet soup in the schools, the men attracted to children campaigns, the student lunch programs. We've absolutely got that. Hopefully we get the last
5. The news lies. One knows the news is all lies anyway from 1984.
All lies, yep.
Yeah, well, what do you think?
Got that now?
Do we all know that the news is nothing but a lie? And now the news is saying that they are fighting disinformation? 6, the destruction of the family. The sex...
or you're fighting disinformation and misinformation. Orwell said, it goes into the memory hole. Here we get Stefan Molyneux, and as of January, a commitment from every elitist and globalitarian on the planet in January, saying that they need to rebuild the trust, and they didn't say by. They should have said by. They need to rebuild the trust by crushing anything that they arbitrarily think of as misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, whatever words speak gobbledygook they want to apply to confuse us, to justify the Orwellian censorship that's required for the level of totalitarianism they want to implement it in our societies. So we're getting down to the wire here, guys.
Impulse was dangerous to the party, and the party had to turn it to account. They had played a similar trick with the instinct of parenthood. The children, on the other hand, were systematically turned against their parents and taught to spy on them and report their deviations. The family had become, in fact, an extension of the thought police.
Family is an extension of the thought police. We absolutely saw that here in Canada. The beer bug virus absolutely created that monstrosity here in Canada, and they weaponized their terrorism of the populace, and now we have this instituted in our society under this Orwellian dystopia. Definitely not a utopia, but yeah.
Do I need to give you an example? 7, political correctness. Don't you see the whole aim of newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there are no words in which to express it.
There's no words left that we're allowed to use to express the thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, and if you say the wrong words, as we saw in that other video there earlier, even your children will turn you in now. What's it going to be like when the next wave of bioterrorism comes and you want to think twice about your allegiance to the state?
Egg producers, birthing people, chest feeding. 8, persecution of political opponents.
Persecution of political opponents? Nah, none of that going on anywhere here. Is there? No.
Power is a means. It is an end. The object of persecution is persecution. Reporter, President Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response, sir? He just smiles. 9, the innocent are suffering. How does one man assert his power over another, Winston? By making him suffer. Exactly.
How does one man exert his power over another? By making them suffer. That's the punchline, folks. This is exactly the punchline of the United Nations, WEF, Fourth Reich. And if I go missing, it's because I've been in Bill Blair's face all day about his announcements as, being a good soldier of the hashtag WEF Fourth Reich. But yeah, that's it. That's the punchline. They rule through the infliction of suffering. Work for every one of the worst monsters in human history. And this is through all of these machinations that they are weaponizing against us. That's the objective.
Exactly. By making him suffer. Obedience is not enough unless he is suffering. How can you be sure?
Obedience is not enough. How dare you? How dare you speak back? You must suffer.
He's obeying your will and not his own. How about the 75-year-old Paulette Harlow, who's in poor health? She also was somebody who, I believe, survived a communist concentration camp. She's in prison for 2 years for praying outside of an abortion clinic. Truth is redefined. Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 = 4. 11, hypocrisy.
Freedom redefined. I think we're seeing a lot of that.
Hypocrisy from government agencies. The Ministry of Peace concerns itself with war. The Ministry of Truth with lies. The Ministry of Love with torture. And the Ministry of Plenty with starvation. These contradictions are not accidental, nor do they result from ordinary hypocrisy. They are deliberate exercises in doublethink. Remember, the FBI is a terrorist organization. It's the American Stasi. It exists entirely to terrorize the American people on behalf of a corrupt and evil regime. No. The FBI is the center of truth. Contradicting beliefs. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one mind simultaneously, accepting both of them. Just so we're clear here, Democrats who are campaigning against Trump based on dubious charges of sexual assault they engineered are still inviting people like Bill Clinton to headline big ticket events, along with his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Even though that's been well established, they're still okay with that. 13, dates altered. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue, street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. Well, in an attempt to replace Easter, the most important Christmas or Christian holiday of the year, with Transgender Day.
Yeah. Right? They're rewriting history, getting rid of the statues and monuments, the books, the everything that's possible from memory, and rewriting our most sacred holidays, the foundations of our culture. This is, and the interesting part of this is the more we understand that this is no longer fiction, it lets us know and understand how they do these things and what's coming next, because they only have the same playbook, right? What we do too, we're just not interpreting it necessarily in the same way all of the time. We want to, believe in all of human nature when unfortunately we cannot.
I think, that kind of does it. This is the beginning, and worse is coming. 14, no trust. We have cut the links between child and parent, between man and man, no man and woman. No one dares trust a wife or a child or a friend any longer. But in the future, there will be no wives. There will be no friends. And
There will be no wives, no friends, no aunts, no uncles, no kids. Everybody will be rated exactly the same as you see in when you watch the movie. Pretty creepy. All wear the same clothes, same hairstyles. Yeah.
Statistics are lies. The fabulous statistics continued to pour out of the telescreen. As compared with last year, there was more food, more clothes, more houses, more furniture, more cooking pots, more fuel, more ships, more helicopters, more books, more babies, more of everything, except for poverty, disease, crime, and insanity. That is where we are, America.
I cannot argue with Glenn on any of those points. They tell us more, 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 more. Every is sunshine and lollipops, and never want to talk about any of the reality. They live in their rose-covered glasses and continue to implement the things that they do. And Carly, absolutely, it's all part of the agenda. Every last bit of it is by design. It's the manufactured destabilization of our society. They're coming for everything, right? And this is, something I addressed on. We've been trying really hard at this. 5 years I've had this podcast going now, and I am reaching less people now than I was in the third month of it. And it's not because the content is better or, pardon me, worse. It's because of censorship. People are just being drawn away or forced away, made inconvenient, all of the things that make it difficult. And with the implementation of Bill C-11, C-18, C-63, I think we might have, maybe if we're lucky, another year without a major lurch back to the right, that we will be able to even do this, as much as we try to adapt and improvise to overcome. It is as much a financial challenge for everybody. It is for us. We don't get paid by the hour for doing what we do. We do it and hope. Some people will force people to pay if they want the truth. I hope and bank on us doing this and fighting this fight together. I serve the people. We work together. We do this. This is a symbiotic arrangement as well. You guys keep me fed and alive, and keep the software working. I will keep working. That's really what it boils down to. But we are in that time. And before I close off here, I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of a refresher on the last 5 years. This is my Buy Me a Coffee. I've been streaming that down there quite through the whole show here tonight. I just want to play this little video in case some people are new here or aren't aware of some of the history and some of the stuff behind What's Up Canada. This is where you can come. Ideally, I've had this up for a while. If I had 30 people that each wanted to buy like 10 memberships for other people and keep this platform free, I can't begin to imagine what I could do. But I won't sell out to advertisers and marketers or anybody that will tell me what I have to say and do on this platform. Will not happen. I serve the people to the best information available that I have. So this is just a little glimpse at my Buy Me a Coffee page, and this little video is a little bit about what we do and how we are here. That sure brings back a lot of memories, a lot of people that have touched this platform, and this platform has touched a lot of people, and that's why I do this, guys. Every once in a while, I get a message where somebody they heard or a guest that they saw or something that we shared or covered impacted their lives in a positive way, and that's why we do this and keep fighting for what we believe in, not necessarily for freedom. I want to touch back on here to a comment that Carly made here. I don't know that we're going to wake up a whole bunch more normies, and I don't think it really is necessary. Jim and I talked about this an awful lot on Wednesday's show about it's time for the next wave of reinforcements of the freedom builders. The freedom fighters are buying time for the freedom builders, and there's that's a whole other way of looking at how do we impact the freedom of our country. So I love you guys all. Stay strong, stay mighty, my fellow patriots and warriors and hostages too. I hope tonight was a little bit of a insightful, reflective look on and helping people understand, this might be where we're at, but we've got the playbook too. And if we know how they're doing it, we can figure out how to undo it. And that I have absolute and utter faith in. Everybody, got a great guest lined up for next Wednesday, but tomorrow is our financial whisperer, banker Bryce Wade with Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks at 6 o'clock Central. Hope we see you there. Bye for now.